Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Blindseyepodcast, the podcast discussing everything you did and didn't want to know about being blind. My name is Connor, and this week we are going to be talking about guide dogs and seeing eye dogs, because there is a difference. We are going to be talking about the different ways you can interact with these dogs, or why you shouldn't interact in certain ways with these dogs. We're going to be talking about why they are called what they are called, what they can do, how they find things, and the fun stuff at the end. We're going to be talking about how you find the poop, because that's a big part of my day, as you can imagine. I'm going to give the usual disclaimer that this is just my opinions. I just happen to be blind. There will be people out there who will agree with me and people who won't. So, as always, grain of salt. Keep that grain of salt in your pocket. Okay, so guide dogs or seeing eye dogs. Now, for people who wouldn't really know, you would think that, I guess, the generic term that gets used or is proper would be guide dog. And I suppose that's the one that everybody uses. That's the colloquial term. But guide dogs and seeing eye dogs are actually brand names. So guide dogs just happen to be the first, association of people who had these dogs that helped people get around who are blind. But yeah, they're essentially competitors with each other. In America, I think they tend to be called seeing eye dogs more often, like in casual speak. But guide dogs and seeing eye dogs, at least in Australia, are actually two different brands. So you'll see on the actual dogs when they're out and about, you'll be able to tell which one is a guide dog and which one is a seeing eye dog by the harnesses they use. But yeah, as everybody knows, generally the term that gets used in the Western world to describe the dog that helps somebody get around who can't see is guide dog. In terms of how they get around and how I get around with mine, I've only had my girl Licorice for about a year and a half, and it's basically the complete opposite to a cane, because with the cane you're navigating via finding obstacles, whereas with the dog you're navigating by, I guess, learned behaviors and by avoiding obstacles, which is a big, it's a big difference when you're trying to actually learn and put your trust in it. And there is a lot to this, so I'm going to try and be as brief as I can, because otherwise this will be hours and hours long. But I can go into it at a later stage, but I'm going to have to break it up, really. So basically, when we are trying to get around, I will have called up an instructor, and I will say, look, this is where I want to get to. I might want to get to the local shops or find my way around. So we'll go and suss it out, maybe with the cane or maybe with my dog on the lead. And we'll just try and scope it out, and we'll say, okay, look, you'll turn left here, you'll find right. There's a bit of a drop off here to the left-hand side. And we'll walk it back and forth a couple of times, just with Lick, my dog on the lead. And just so kind of it familiarizes her, familiarizes me. And then just say if we get to a shop that I particularly want to know how to get to, what we will do is we will bring Lick into that shop. We'll bring her up to the counter, and the whole time we'll say the name of the shop. So, just say it might be the hairdressers, and we'll walk in, and as we're turning in, we'll say, come on, find the hairdressers. We're going to the hairdressers. And then we'll walk her up to the counter. And when I get to the counter, I'll have a handful of treats. And as I'm giving her the treats, I'll say, good girl, find the hairdressers, find the hairdressers. And then she learns to, I guess, associate getting fed with that sound and that location. So we'll go back and forth and do that a couple of times. And probably after 3 or 4 times, she knows exactly where I want to go, because I guess you keep feeding her, you keep giving her a treat, she knows she's nailing it. So every time she gets to it, you give her another 1 or 2 treats. And yeah, as I said, within a couple of times, she knows exactly where you want to go. And it's basically then just about saying to her when you're in the complex, okay, come on, we're going to the hairdressers. and she'll know roughly where you want to go. You still need to know things like where you roughly need to turn. So I still kind of have to have the muscle memory, or listen out for sounds to know where I am. So I need to be able to maybe say, okay, look, find right, find left. And then she'll kind of know, okay, we're going this way. Where do we usually go when we're in this area? We usually go here. And then if I say that word, she'll do that. Or other times, perhaps even if I don't say that word, she'll walk past the shop and she'll kind of point her nose in that direction thinking, are we going in here? And if I want to, I'll say, yep, find the hairdressers, or I'll say, no, not today, and then she'll just keep walking straight. So it's all about repetition and like positive reinforcement, which is what the food is, and the pats and the good girls. That's all that's about. I did want to talk about that because, yeah, a lot of people just think, they're like a GPS who just have all this knowledge pumped into them, and, they get given to you and you just go, hey, bring me to Macca's. But that's really not how it works. In certain situations, maybe where she might have learned something in the area when she was training before I got her. So there are places that she recognizes because, she was running around in there and getting trained with the instructors long before I had her. So there's a place near me that she knows better than I do because, she was learning that for 6 months before her and I even met. But yeah, definitely not a GPS situation, which would be awesome. But yeah, that's not how it works. That brings us on to the etiquette. So I often get asked, hey, can I pet your dog? Can I feed your dog? Things like that. And I guess if you've come in contact with a guide dog or a seeing eye dog, you may have heard similar things from other handlers. And handlers makes it sound like spies or something. But yeah, handlers. And I guess it sounds harsh and it sounds like a bit of a buzzkill, but it's basically because we need the dog to be focused on the job, and we need them to be listening to us only. And I guess the problem is that if they start getting pats or start getting food, then there's always a possibility that they'll go looking for pats and for food. And that could make the difference between, when you're walking. So I've had instances where I'm walking upstairs to a train platform and somebody decides to pat the dog, or there's food on the ground. And then the dog can just kind of, turn its head or stop and things like that. And that could be the difference between me, I guess misstepping, which could be the difference between me falling or, breaking an ankle or things like that. And I guess that's what we try to avoid, because so much of the way the dogs work is just learned behavior and repetition. So you reinforce the behavior you want and that's desirable for them and for you, and you try and avoid potentially problematic behavior. It's funny actually, because I remember one time I had like a couple of girls from uni or something who were on the platform, and they were saying, can I pet your dog? And I said, look, no, sorry, she's working. And as I said that, I started patting her. And they were like, well, you're patting her dog. I'm like, yeah, well, she's my dog. But it's just that obedience and repetition thing, because I need her to respond to me only. Because if she starts going looking for food, or things like that, then there could be issues. I mean, I do know people where maybe, there's been a piece of food on the middle of a road crossing and the dog goes, oh, I'll just do that and I'll go for that. Now, that could be the difference between you getting into trouble or, I guess, disoriented. And then, when you're trying to find your way off the road, again, when you finally get control of the situation, you could be shaken up or you could head off in the wrong direction and things like that. So we really try and avoid all of these things as much as possible, even though, yeah, I guess it seems like such a buzzkill. It's for that reason as well that, unfortunately, I even have to have like a little sign on the harness and the handle that wraps around her to say, do not pat. And just because, people do. And I guess people sometimes think, oh, hey, he's not going to know anyway. But I usually know. And most people I know who have guide dogs or seeing eye dogs do know, because you have to realize for us, it's all about the body language. We're with the dog 24 hours a day. So we know what's normal behavior or desirable. And so, and you can feel it through the handle as well. So when I'm walking along, I can tell if her head is turned to the left or the right. I can tell if it's even just tilted slightly, because you can feel that feedback in the handle. And so, people think, oh, hey, this guy won't know. He's blind. What will he know? I just want to give the dog a pat. What's the harm? But we know. So, try to not do it, even though it's hard. I do sometimes make an exception for like really, really small children if they ask nicely, because I just find it too hard to say no. But that's how it works. And as I said, it's all about body language, and that's what gives us our confidence and our certainty about what's going on, because we build that bond. It takes about a year, but you build that bond, that working relationship with the dog, and then what's usual. The little quirks of your own dog. When she does something like this, you know what that means. Like, I can tell when she can see another dog before I've even heard the other dog, because she reacts in a particular kind of way. And I guess to somebody who doesn't know any better, you would think, well, how would you know any of these things? But it's just building that relationship and learning that body language and just getting in sync and in rhythm with each other. And that's kind of what the biggest part of the training is trying to make that happen. That kind of brings us in nicely to the last little topic here, which comes to the food, because I need to know when she's eaten, because then I know when she's most likely to need to go to the toilet. So if she eats at a certain time every day, one, I know she has enough energy to do what, we need to do. But it also means that, that routine means that I can plan, okay, around when does she need to go to the toilet and when I need to be thinking about that. I also always get asked a question about, I guess, how do you find her business after she's done her business? And I was really paranoid about that. Like, I was I didn't like dogs before I got mine. I was very apprehensive, and that was the thing I was most apprehensive about. Like, okay, how am I going to pick after this? I don't want to be touching any of it. But it's actually quite simple when you get your head around it. And, people always say, oh, why can't you just leave it on the ground? Like, surely you don't have to pick it up. Like, you have a good excuse and stuff. And that's not the law. So the law is, whether you have a guide dog or a seeing eye dog or a service animal or, just a pet, you have to pick up after it if it's out in public. And, rightly so. So basically, the way it works with us is, as I mentioned, body language is a big thing. So when I know that she hasn't gone to the toilet, which I usually know because she's with me all the time, for one, we have a password. So she has a password to kind of tell her, hey, this is what I need you to try and do. And we don't tell anyone else that password, just in case they, get a bit funny and decide they're going to try and, do something about it. But, we bring them onto a grassy area and we'll tell them the password, and we can kind of tell by the way they start walking around. We have them on a long lead, and you can kind of tell by the way they walk back and forth and stuff, and they start sniffing around. You just kind of learn what your dog does before they're about to do anything. So they'll walk back and forth, and then they'll stop. And then what will happen is I'll follow the lead into her body, and I'll feel her body. And I'll be able to feel whether she's still on all fours or if she's crouched down or things like that. And if she is crouched down, what you do is, and what you're taught to do is run your hand down their back. And if you run your hand down their back and it's at sort of like a 45-degree angle, it's straight, there's no bends or curves, then generally it means they're peeing. And, so you feel that and okay, there's nothing I need to pick up. So you feel that, you walk away a few steps, you wait till they're finished, and they'll usually bolt away because they're all happy that it's gone. And that's that. When it comes to number 2, same process. You'll bring your hand in, follow it into their neck, then you'll run your hand down their back, and then you'll feel that their back will be curved with their back legs, like on the ground. And so you'll feel that it's curved, so you'll know that's what they're doing. And then basically what you do is you step away, but you might step away by like a step or two, and you point your toe at where their back meets their tail, because that's where their butt is. And you point your toe there, and then look, when they're finished doing what they're doing, they'll run away, or they'll run in a little circle behind you. And then you just do what you would do if you had a normal pet. So you just put a bag over your hand inside out, and that, a few inches or a foot in front of where your toe is pointing, that there's something there. And then you bend down and you feel around for it, and then you just put the bag over the bag over it, turn it the right way around again, and then tie it up, throw it in the bin. So it's, I guess, to me as well, as I said, it seemed like, oh my God, how am I going to find this? Am I going to have to touch it? All this stuff. But after a while, it just becomes, I guess it's like a baby. It just becomes a thing you do, and, you realize there's a method to it, and you work out a way around it. And some dogs, like, there are these things called toilet harnesses where you basically just like strap this belt around the dog's hips, and then you attach a bag to it and wrap it up, and you bring it up around the tail, and then the dog does its business and it's all there, and all you have to do is just unclip it. So you don't even have to try and find it, because wherever the dog walks around, that bag is going to be right underneath the special spot, for lack of a better word. So that's how you do it. It's not as intimidating once I got used to it, and not as crazy as you think. So look, as I said in the beginning, there's so much to talk about with guide dogs, and I am happy to go into it, but I just thought this would be I guess an easy bite-sized way to talk about some of the big things. So I'll probably go into it later on, especially if I get some questions. So I hope you've enjoyed. As I said last week and the week before, you can get in touch with me by email and by Twitter. So you can email blindseyepodcast@gmail.com. That's BLINDSEYE podcast@gmail.com. Or you can tweet blindseyepod and we'll have a chat. So thanks very much for listening, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.